recording. The Town of Fairfield regularly scheduled monthly meeting of the FairTV Commission, Wednesday, February 21st, a little after 8 p.m. Thank you, everyone. In attendance, everybody. So don't have to do introductions. We'll kick it right off with Chairman's notes. Bear with me one moment. I know there are upcoming Board of Selectmen budget meetings. I'm not sure. I believe you guys see those emails. They're really just continuously a schedule of, you know, what they're going to be reviewing when. As this is the first time I've been the chairman when the budget meetings have been going on. I'm looking to get a little clarity, and I don't know, Paula, if you know this or anyone else does. Is there an expectation that we participate in that meeting? Because there's not necessarily an agenda with specific times.
No, not to my knowledge. I thought that you actually just have a separate meeting about the budget and that it's nothing that you actually have to attend when they actually do the main meeting.
Yeah, that's my, and we did have a meeting, Luke and myself in January, early January, Luke.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, with Frank, the first selectman, and Christine, his chief of staff. And then that helped inform us for our last meeting. And I'm sure this will weave into Luke, your report. But for now, that's really the only remark that I have as far as an opening remark goes. So I'll turn it over to you, Paul.
Yeah, I don't have anything this month. So it's probably going to
Round the
Will.
horn.
All right. For me, just I'd make a motion to approve the minutes from our January meeting, dated January 22nd, 2024.
A second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Hey.
Carries unanimously. Thank you. And that's it for me.
Great.
So I think that brings us to manager's report.
Before you get, I'm sure you're going to get into the grant status, if there is any status aside from the usual status of waiting, but where do we leave off? If you can just incorporate this in your report with the budget.
Yeah, so the approved budget that we talked about last time, I think that you guys all approved. I sent that to Frank. He reviewed it. He gave me a call and just had a couple questions on a few things I just gave clarity on. So he's got a good understanding of that. He said he'll present it with the note that the broadcast server is basically awaiting grant approval. So basically he'll let them know that if the grant is approved and we get the full amount, then the town won't have to pay for it. If the grant is not approved, then the town will have to pay for it.
And pay for what exactly?
The swap of the broadcast server equipment. But I told him, I said, most likely we'll get a majority, if not most of the money, if not all of the money from the grant. And I still believe we might even have some leftover money from last grant. I'll have to check. I thought I used it all, but I think there was some, maybe from the previous year, there was some carryover because I do see some extra funds in there in the grant fund. So I think maybe Jerry never spent the full amount or something in the past. So. And then on that note, on the grant, I did touch base with the point of contact at the Peg-Pisha grant company, and they said that she sent me the schedule. I have it up here, that basically on the 22nd, which is tomorrow, that's the application window closes. So that is the end of all applications for the PEG-PESHA grant. And then on the March 25th, it says recommended proposed final decision due. And then April 2nd, it says proposed final decision issued. April 10th is the written exceptions due. And then April 17th is the final meeting and final decision. And that's what she said, that she said we might have some unofficial notice of how much we'll be getting, but we won't know the official amount until the 17th of April. So that's a little bit later than I thought. And I let Frank know that too, so he's in the know on that. So basically, again, just back to wait and see what they say, but at least we have somewhat of a timeline as far as like the exact date that we'll know by. And I think if I looked at the budget season schedule, I think RTM, the last budget voting is after that. So I don't know if Frank could take that out. If the grant gets approved, he could take it out before the final vote. I'll have to ask him about that further.
So it takes something to the tune of 2 months for the budget to be approved through BOS and RTM.
Yeah. So it looks like so Board of Selectmen budget that starts next week,
Right.
26, and then it doesn't finish off till the 4th, and then Board of Finance gets it, and then they review it from looks like March 6th through the 3rd of April is the final vote from them.
Okay.
And then it goes off to the RTM, which is April 8th through the 24th.
So we won't know essentially. And what is the line item? What's the value? I just think it's always good to repeat these
Yeah,
things.
I could give you the specifics, but I believe it was like just under 30,000.
Right.
I think it was like 29 and change.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, it's up to the town, obviously, but it's almost like even though we don't see any reason we won't get it, it's almost like they have to, plan on allocating it, right? I don't know
Yeah,
when our
essentially.
bill
So
is due.
it's essentially like almost like a backup plan, but I mean, like we're betting on the grant to get approved, but we, if we also need the money in order, in case it doesn't, because it definitely does have to be replaced this year.
Right. Yeah, this is a one-off, capital expense.
Yep.
I mean, one-off as long as they last, but
Yeah, and this one should last a lot longer than the last one that
Right.
Jerry purchased. I spoke with the company and a couple of the vendors, and they said that the one he had was like all hardware based. So once that
Yeah.
gets obsolete, it's basically done. This one that I'm getting is all mostly software, so it could continuously be updated for the next, 5-10 years, if not more.
Will still be on the committee then.
He'll be on his 5th kid by then.
Which
I have any more kids, I'm not on any more committees, I'll tell you that.
You mean no kids means no more committees, or mean if there's no more kids, then you should be on another committee?
Any more kids? No more committees, including this one.
Right.
No more kids, maybe this committee. Which I like you guys.
Well, until you get kicked up a notch. Anyway, Lee, do you have any questions on?
No.
Yeah, and then one last thing I want to just quick touch on was I guess we could officially say that we ran our first Zoom room meeting today for Board of Selectmen. I met with Dave and pretty much all the staffers on the team last week, and we kind of did a dry run Just kind of getting them familiar with the software, the actual equipment itself, because they wanted to do it last week, but that was a snowstorm, and I said, it's better off to wait because if there's power outages or whatnot, there's no sense in trying something new in bad weather. So we did the first one today, and it went okay. There was a few hiccups, but more so on the end of the actual physical location of the desks and the podium. The podium was too far away from the microphone, so that has to be moved in. The desks have to be moved in, and it's just more stuff like that. I mean, as far as our side of it, everything was good. There was no issues there. But I'm sure Lee will probably get an email later saying that the audio was a little bit quiet. But again, it sounded fine when Bill was talking because he was right underneath the microphone. But with I don't know who it was in the committee there, but they put the podium way too far away for the mics to pick up. So that's just something, again, something that.
Where is this?
What was that?
Oh, sorry, just refresh my memory. Where did this occur?
That was first floor conference room at Sullivan Hall.
Okay.
So, but I mean, we could say that we did the first Zoom and it went pretty good. So at least that's some positive feedback from these Zoom rooms. And one, I guess, a slight update to the Board of Ed Zoom room. I know I heard from my boss actually today that the vendor finally got back and supposed to order out all their replacement equipment next week. Hoping to come within the following week, and then they'll come in and install everything the right way this time. So some positive feedback, but still no finish date set. But at least there's some progress.
Okay, that's good. Okay, I guess good across the board.
Yeah.
I think we can sort of move on to new business unless there's
Yep.
any other key updates. I mean, whether it's new business or an update, why don't you let everyone know what you discovered at Ward or what you've
Oh yeah. So
evolved at Ward?
yeah. So after the last meeting, we had some audio issues because the sound mixer at Ward's auditorium wasn't set up properly. So I met with one of my colleagues at the IT department in Fairfield. We kind of went over there, diagnosed everything, spent a good portion of the day troubleshooting, making sure all the settings were correct. And basically we set what's called a scene. It's basically a preset that you save. So now we have a preset in. So anytime we have a meeting, that will automatically be set to the settings that we set it for our meetings. So basically what I think what happened was, obviously the auditorium has plays and different shows, different events there. So I think they must have messed with it and then never put it back to their default. So then we went to test it, and of course it worked. And then that day, everything got changed, and it was just wasn't enough time to get in there and start reconfiguring everything, and because we were just it was a last minute thing that they must have changed last minute. So, but from now on, it should be good. I also did the same thing at Ludlow High School, so that I set the presets there too, so that everything should be good. So no matter what, if they hold another remote meeting at any of the high schools, we should be covered. I think you're muted, Dave.
Hello?
Yeah.
It's always fun. It's always an adventure, even in the middle of a call. Which school is more optimal?
I think Ward. just because the microphone setups, they have 9 pretty much brand new wireless mics. The Ludlow has the mics, but they're kind of old, and there's just kind of thrown in a pile, and who knows what works and what doesn't. I mean, I've met with the music teacher there, or whoever, the guy who normally runs the events and all that. And he has a somewhat of an idea, but I think Ward just has a better layout, you know, as far as better, newer mics, and the actual layout itself is pretty good as well. Like,
Is it bigger or about the same size?
Lee, you were there. I would say Ward's probably, I think, bigger.
I haven't been in Ludlow for a long
Okay.
time, but
Yeah, Ludlow.
Ward's plenty big.
Yeah, I would say Ludlow it might be the same seat number, but it's definitely laid out awkwardly. There's like 2 or 3 sections. So I don't know if it might be the exact same seat number, but Ward just seems bigger to me.
Right. I'm asking because a couple questions here. First off, I don't remember, did you provide an update to Jen and Christine about Ward?
I don't remember.
Right. I'm trying to, I think it's important that they know,
Yep.
because this is exactly, the question that came up, like what to do in these big situations. But secondly, like you mentioned, that people had messed with the microphones. I mean, it's a school, obviously it
Yeah.
doesn't revolve around these meetings, but how do we ensure, the next time you get back to Ward, is it just that now you know what to look for and to troubleshoot beforehand?
Yeah. So now I could go back to that preset that I set and saved. So now all I have to do is just go into the preset and then load it back to the main one, and it will be good. And I'll also know what to look for as well.
Okay. That's fine. I would love to see, Ludlow have the same capability. And I have questions in my mind.
Yeah,
if it would
I
be-
would say that it probably does, because I even asked the staff member that does any events there, and I asked him, I said, just hypothetically, if we had to hold a meeting that had required 9 or 10 wireless mics, would that be able to handle that? Would you guys be able to? And he said that it would be able to. We would just have to let them know ahead of time, which they do anyways with scheduling. They have to go through the whole scheduling route to schedule the venue and basically get the microphones and everything set up. So they would have enough lead time on their end. So from him, it sounds like they would be able to handle that no problem. So
Okay, but I mean, the mics themselves aren't good at Ludlow.
again, I don't. They look older to me.
Right.
The other ones look brand new. But again, who knows if that means that some of them don't work, or maybe they all do work. It's just
Right.
it's not as neat and organized, and
I mean, look, it sounds like Ward is not really an issue with availability, but if there's a school performance or some sort of ceremony,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And just to stay ahead of the curve, I don't think this has to be a high priority, but can and should you get to Ludlow when you have time? Emphasis on when you have time. Knowing what your day looks like, just to do a little bit more of a deep dive, because I think the question that emerged from Jen and Christine is, do we have 2 good options? As I said, I don't think this is a real concern because I don't recall Ward being unavailable to us, but I'm in the back of my mind, I wonder if these microphones, I mean, they're not very expensive, but are we even in position to, I mean, is the town / we in position to, furnish those if we need
See,
to hold a meeting?
well, that's the thing. I guess that's kind of where because it's like the gray area, so to speak, is because it's not just a microphone, because they're all wireless and they hook into their system. So it's like, school's property. It's like the school, not the town. So
Yep.
it's kind of like, it's not like you could just bring any microphone and be like, "All right, it works now." Like they have to be configured to the wireless receiver that's already installed into the room and whatnot. So it's kind of a little more convoluted that way. But again, I'll follow up with him and just to even schedule a time to go over and like I said, like work what doesn't and make sure that we're able to get a feed out of there.
Got it. Anyone have any other thoughts on this matter? No. Okay. Well, great work figuring that out. And if you want to just be sure, as I said, with Jen and Christine, to drop them another note, because I have a feeling, and I'll look in my email as well.
Yeah,
they were
maybe
not.
I think she sent me and you an email about that.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just reply to that and just kind of give her the update that I gave you guys back, last week or whenever that was. Just kind of give the update about what I saw, what I did, and so they have a better understanding.
Oops. That would be great. Okay. Moving right along. The big order of business, new business. The upcoming meeting requests. I think we've all had some, conversation, not as a group, but on what we can tackle. Give me one moment. Okay, February 9th, Jen sent us or sent an email, and I forwarded it around to the group. So here's the following meetings, and please correct me if there's any updates that I'm missing here. But the next one is Wednesday, the 28th. How could I forget? This one is the for the benefit of exactly us. Rules and information about holding these meetings. I think the last time they did this, it must have predated our leadership, Paula, because I don't remember any, but I do think this would be extremely valuable for us to film. I, for one, would love to learn more about this, and I will not be available that night. I'll be traveling out of town, and I'm sure I speak for many people who can't make it. So what are the thoughts on pro, con, otherwise on us filming this meeting?
So I watched the previous one, which I think was done 4 years ago at least.
Oh, really? That far back? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of good information in it. I think for not just us, but for everyone who serves on any board or commission, it's valuable information because a lot of it's legal stuff that you need to know. And so making it available, I think, is a no-brainer.
Agreed.
Yep,
I
agreed.
can't attend either, and I'd love to see the meeting. So
Be careful what you ask.
selfishly, I agree. Yeah.
Well, take some no-dos before you watch it.
There is I'm sure we can, if you're not able to watch it live, you can, skip around. But yeah, I mean, needless to say, I think if there's such a thing as board homework, we should all just take the time to, view parts of it, because it's just going to help us, especially when thorny issues come up, which we all know very well. So I'll make a motion. Sorry, Luke, resource wise,
Yeah,
think-
we're good to go. I checked with everyone and it's actually being held at the Board of Ed boardroom, which is one of our normal sites. So we have all the equipment ready to go. So yeah, no issues there. We got staffers ready to go. So good on that one.
Okay, I'll make a motion to vote for the FairTV Commission filming live the upcoming information session for town boards and committee members hosted by Town Attorney Phil Pyers.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion is approved unanimously. I see two others. This one is interesting. Monday, March 18th at the Bigelow Center. I should preface this by saying this is in a ceremony to honor all Korean and Vietnam War veterans living in Fairfield. The Lieutenant Governor is hosting these veterans. And I suppose, as Jen Carpenter points out, we have a large segment. And so this obviously, would be to pay attention, to serve as extra attention. This is on a weekday. Obviously, as you see, Luke, and I have no idea I don't recall us doing anything at the Bigelow Center. So before we even get into the merits of this pro or con,
I would
what's
say
your
that
take?
I would say that we don't have the resources because I know there's also other meetings that night that take precedent. Also, again, we've never actually held a meeting at the Bigelow Center, so I don't know what they have there, what they expect from us. I mean, it's just too many questions, and we honestly don't even have the staff to do it. So I would say no because we don't have the resources, or the venue we're unclear of, and it's we don't have time to test it and all that.
Well, I just want to hone in on something. Let's say, for argument's sake, it was at Ward. Is there still a staffing issue?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Well, to me, that's the most significant part.
Yep.
I mean,
Exactly.
And I want to, right when on the back end of this discussion and debate about the third request, I want you to bring up the staffing matter because that's obviously important. So, this was labeled as a nice to have. I do think it would be nice to have, but there's a big difference between nice and what we're, mandated or, really determined as in the top public interest. So just for formality's sake, I'll make a motion to vote on whether we should cover the Korean and Vietnam War veterans ceremony for those vets who live in Fairfield.
You want to state your motion as
Well, I just thought we'd vote on it just so there's no lack of clarity on where we stand. I mean, it's pretty clear to us that we don't have the resources. And based on that alone, it's my view that we can't cover it, but that's my view.
Right, I'm not disagreeing. That's just the way you stated your motion. It's to vote on it. I think you want to say vote not to.
I'm sorry. When I said vote on whether we should cover it, it's a formality. I mean,
and this is maybe where next week's Robert's Rules meeting will be helpful. I think the decision, the negotiation, the deliberation that we don't have the resources. If we feel like we can't do it, just no one raises the motion to cover it, right? And then it's because I think the implication is by raising the motion to cover, someone would second it, also believing that it's worth covering it, and then everyone would vote. Again, a technicality, and I could be completely wrong, but that's my layperson's interpretation. So I think it's one of those things where if one of us felt compelled to raise the motion to cover it, we would, but I don't know that anyone
do
does.
you or Paula feel compelled that we should cover it?
I mean, I'm obviously biased as a veteran, where I would love to cover those types of things, and I think it meets like the standard of secondary content. I think most importantly is our commitment to cover the things that we're obligated to cover, and not exhausting our resources, which, you know, again, we'll talk about, which are scarce. What I would say is so I don't think this is appropriate as a follow-on. I think will be interesting is to follow up with the requester to say, like, for future events like this, the sooner you can get in touch with us so that we can help you identify a date where we would have the resources to cover and a location where we are equipped to cover. Like, just because we're not doing this one doesn't mean it's like clearly, I think with this group, like, not
Excellent
a
point. Right.
Not something where we don't want to cover it. Like, help us help you, like, enable us to be prepared to cover something like this.
Right.
And again, like, we can obviously vote on these types of things in the future if it meets the needs of secondary content. But I'm also happy to participate in reaching out to them and educating them on, like, just the lead time that we need and preferred locations, or if it's going to be at the senior center, like, great. Let's do the legwork to get Luke and the team out there to see, like, what do they have, what do they need, how can we be ready in the future, with the understanding that also,
and in fairness,
probably a large portion of our viewership is probably, engaged also at that senior center as well. So
I couldn't agree more with your comments. Paula, anything you want to add?
No, I agree with everything that Will just said. I mean, it's very elementary that the staffing, we don't have it. So that's where the problem starts. I mean, we can get into the semantics about whether we should cover it or not, but it's not even really a point, because if we don't have the staff to cover it, then it's not worth it in my mind to even go down that rabbit hole. So I think that without the staffing and having other primary meetings that have to be covered that day, it kind of becomes a non-issue.
Lee?
I agree. I was just wondering, just for my own edification, if this were an evening event on the same evening, same day, but an evening event, would you have the resources, or you don't have the resources because there's
So
so many other
the
meetings?
event that the RTM meeting is actually in the evening. So that would take precedent over.
Right.
But yeah, so basically we not lost Paxton, but Paxton got another job. So he's unavailable during the day now. I work obviously until about 5, so I'm available during the day. So that would just leave one more of our producers, and he's running the RTME that day.
Right.
So
Got it.
and even a lot, especially on a remote setup like that, I like to be involved and be there just to make sure everything goes smooth, especially something that we've never covered before. Even if it's just to help set up and make sure everything goes smoothly. But yeah, so that kind of answers your question more or less as far as the staffing purposes. Yeah, if it was at night, then perhaps we would be better off. But again, we still have that other meeting that kind of is at the same time. So
Well, and
it
even
makes
if
it
we're
kind
at night, it'd have to be some other place because the big of the center doesn't work.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah,
I agree with Paula.
and
It's a moot question.
Yeah, and I
Figure
want
out
to be
other people.
careful about expanding, because of this situation with Paxton and the time that Luke has put in, to get, these issues sorted out while we're waiting for a new broadcast server. And, we've got one high school that's not optimal. I'm candidly not interested at this time of adding, a new location. That does take time. And even, when that's done, there's some variables, right? So, the Bigelow Center is an incredible venue, but, if the town elects to have meetings there or ceremonies there, it's with the understanding that that's not part of our regular roster of locations to film. Luke, you can put it on your big, master to-do list, but I, for one, am not rushing you to, figure out how to make that place work, because that is
Yeah.
a rabbit hole in and of itself.
Yeah, so I've
Um,
never actually been over there, so I'm not sure what it looks like. But it sounds like it's a big venue and
Yeah.
it's, and like like we said, especially now with the Zoom room, I feel like the expectation maybe, so if way to put it would be that we cover more in-house meetings because we have the Zoom room set up, and if we have two meetings going on at once, instead of lugging all the cameras over, we could essentially run them both at the same time if it's an education one and a government one. So that I think that the I guess the goal of the Zoom rooms is to help us cover more in-house meetings, like RTM, TPZ, inland wetlands we picked up. Um, I don't know, there's a bunch others that, we get the requests for. So again, I don't know if picking up another venue I think that would kind of hurt us, and especially staffing wise, because now you'd have two guys you'd be pulling to help do a setup, and now it's two less guys that we have available to potentially stream, two meetings at the same time. So it's just, I don't know. It's kind of, I think, like you said, it's tough to pick up another venue that we don't know the exact locations of it yet, and like what they have and what we need and what we would have to bring. It's just a lot of unknown right now.
Okay. I think we've given this really thorough consideration, and it's good to talk about it because we know what's in front of us. And, we'll make, Luke, when you reply to Jen, because I think you should, make that reply. I'll add on and copy, the rest of the commission if there's any question about this, but just want to make sure we're not tackling too many things here. That's always been the challenge, especially as you said, we're improving. So let's take advantage of what we've improved. So let's move on. Will, your point totally taken, about, voting and so forth. And we can get into that after this next meeting. The final request is Thursday, April 25th. The Connecticut DOT is having a public information meeting at BOE. So certainly not an issue. 295 AB. US Route 1 road diet. I have to sort of catch up here on, what exactly this is, but I don't want to get too into what it is because it's not part of this is one that kind of straddles the line, if you will. The timing of the meeting is 7 p.m. First things first, do we have anything else going on that night, or is there a staffing issue?
Yeah, so there actually is not anything else going on that night, April 25th. So we are free staffing wise, and it is at Board of Ed, so one of our normal sites, so we could, verify that equipment is good. So I guess it's just a matter of if you guys feel that we should cover it. It's something that fits the charter.
Lee, I'd love to kick this one off to you. Have you taken a look at the subject matter?
To tell you the truth, I haven't. I suspect, no, actually, showing me it.
I'm trying to remember. I don't want to get into semantics like where Reynolds Drive is. I know where Beaumont is, but basically, in summary, it's a Connecticut DOT project that will consist of restriping a 4-lane roadway on Route 1 to a 3-lane roadway with a center 2-way left turn lane.
Yeah.
It's resurfacing and restriping the corridor. Nothing strikes me as that unusual. Road diets are low-cost ways to calm traffic and improve safety, says Connecticut DOT project manager Jonathan Carilla. This is a Connecticut DOT project that, you know, impacts Fairfield, impacts like not just people's emotions and thoughts, but impacts like, you know, the way people move around, and so forth. The project would be completed in October with a tentative advertising date of December. I'm not really clear what that means. An advertising date. Like they would make an announcement about it, or in any event, it looks like it doesn't say when it would start, but you know, I guess like anything else, you know, how often, you know, what makes this project different from others, right? That's what I would like to know. I mean, obviously it's in a busy stretch of road. Will, any thoughts, Paula?
I think it's in the public interest. And especially since we have the capability of covering it and it's in a place, to me, it makes sense. And I would definitely make a motion to cover it.
Yeah, I'm of the same mind. It does conflict with our primary responsibilities, has a material physical impact on the day-to-day lives of people who live in Fairfield. It's an output of the tax dollars that people are seeing taken from their paychecks. Feels like, to me, feels like a relevant meeting to cover, and also meets, you know, the nonpartisan. It's just it seems to be like a factual representation of something that is going to happen one way or the other. So
I would just add, for what it's worth, I attended a roundtable discussion, I think it was in December, where the subject of these kinds of things, that there's going to be a lot more of this happening around town. And so I think it, you know, it puts us, it's a good thing to do, because we're going to hear more of it.
Yeah,
It doesn't mean we have to cover every one of them, but
right.
this one we're able
But
to
if
do it, we ought to do it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, you know, you probably haven't heard the last of, you know, the UI polls discussion, even though I know there was some approval. But if we do have opportunities, like you said, Lee and Will, this is clearly in the public interest as a matter that affects people's physical comings and goings. Paula, did I hear you correctly that you made a motion to vote on it?
No, that I said that I would make a motion because I
Okay.
feel like it's something that we should do. So if the discussion's over, I'm happy to make a motion to cover the meeting on the 25th of April, the state DOT, at the Board of Ed to discuss the
right.
road diet.
I hate to get into semantics here, but you are making a motion to vote on it, or making a motion to just actually cover it?
I'm making a motion to cover it.
Okay.
and I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Lee, did you vote? I couldn't.
I
Okay.
vote for.
Okay. So of the three requests, Luke, we'll, you know, honor two of them. I mean, we've agreed to two of them, which is great. Another reflection of, you know, your ability to staff us well and do things within our wheelhouse. So the locations are fine, the date, the timing is fine, etc. Luke, would you respond to, you know, when you can, ideally next few days, Jen's email?
Yeah, sure. I'll get back to her on that, and I'll also mention the high school audio issue as well.
Yeah, I mean, but this is a success story. So
Yeah,
just not to bury this, we're getting close to 9 o'clock here. So where do we stand with Paxton? And
So yeah, so he
Paxton being our, fill in the blank.
was that.
No, just remind everybody. And
Yeah, so Paxton's one of our producers that we have. He currently got a second job or a main job using this as a second job, but he was using this as his first. He got a new job that basically takes away his daytime availability. So he's tells me that he's still able to cover a decent amount of meetings after 6 o'clock, which is luckily when most of our meetings are. But we also have another staffer, Jeff, who kind of started as a shorter position, but then I've kind of forced him to do more producing, which kind of falls in nicely because he works mostly weekends on his main job. So he's available most days and during the day. And so it kind of works out. So he's kind of been taking the role like what Paxton would have been doing. So he's been doing that for the last couple of weeks. He's been doing pretty well. Just again, just a matter of just getting the repetitions in, learning everything. But he's been doing well, so that's a good sign. I also kind of stumbled upon actually one of our other staffers who just hosts the WebEx and everything. His daughter actually expressed some interest, so I met with her last week. And she seemed like a good candidate to jump on board. So she's available to do just like the setup and hosting and basically running the cameras if we need to on specific Zoom rooms and whatnot. So that kind of takes the place of what Jeff was originally doing in the beginning. So it's kind of, knock on wood, everything's kind of going pretty smooth there. And one of the other previous producers that Jerry had, he he knows Jeff, so he reached out too and said he can help if we ever need him too. So we're doing, knock on wood, pretty good on staffing now. So
that's really great to hear, Luke.
yeah,
A
so it's,
testament to you.
thanks. Yeah, I always go with the mentality of, I'd rather have more than enough backups than
Right.
not enough,
Yeah. And, I think it always bears repeating, like, the way we carved this role out for you. I think it's great when you can slide into something. But we really designed this role for you not to be, needing to attend all these meetings. And that's, how we came up in part with your compensation and what we just thought was reasonable for, someone who has to straddle the line between, technically a career and something on the side like this. So that's great. I think that covers everything for tonight and this month. Does everybody have the updated calendar schedule with the rest of the appointments for the year? Okay, thank
Yes.
you, Will. So just to clarify, because it can get confusing, all other meetings going forward, starting in March, will be on Monday nights at 8 p.m. I repeat, Mondays at 8 p.m. There is no, there's not an exception to that. The only exception is that in September, we've pushed the meeting 1 week later, but still on a Monday night. And that is to avoid the Jewish holiday. So I think everybody's got their calendar invites. Little housekeeping item being that it's on a Monday now. I'll be submitting an agenda always on a Friday because it is too late to go in on a Monday morning. But if it gets in on Friday, as long as that's during business hours, that's fine. It's got to be 24 hours beforehand, but nobody's working over the weekend in the town clerk's office is my assumption. I mean, it's closed. So I'll be submitting those agendas on Friday. I think we filled out all of our responsibility. And I have to ask, since we huddle once a month, does anybody know the status of our potential fifth
I was
member?
going to ask you.
Well, if you give me a second. I mean, I don't know. As you can see, I'm searching for it. I'm just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Will, did you talk to?
I did. And the last that I heard is that the confirmation at the next BOS and RTN meetings was the next step.
Got
I
it.
know she's been approved by we're talking about the same person, right? I know she's been approved by Board of Selectmen because I was at the meeting.
That's what I thought.
And it should have gone to the RTM.
And what is the delay? Well, this doesn't have to be discussed here because it's really not, it's really something out of our purview, you know. But well, thanks for talking to her and always, yeah, I mean, not always, but like certainly talking to candidates. It's obviously not something we have to do or are obligated to do, but I think, you know, in light of, you know, how this commission's turned over, it's a great idea too. And the town certainly welcomes our feedback. Hopefully, if we can add her, there won't be any turnover, but can't control that or know how that works. So just want to thank you for doing that.
Of course, my pleasure.
Yeah, I don't know, Lee. It feels like there's an unusually long gap of time here.
Yeah,
When is the next RTM?
That is actually next week on
but they should have.
Monday, 26th.
But they've had meetings, don't they meet every 2 weeks? Here at the end?
No, every month. So they have the RTM all committee meeting, and then they have just the RTM meeting.
But this requires the.
That's just the regular meeting. I think that's when they do all the voting. So that's once a month. So last one would have been on January 29th.
Yeah,
And
I'm looking at that, and it says after the RTM votes on your appointment on January 29th, you can go to the town clerk's office starting Tuesday, June 30th. And I'm just going to ask Jen, does anybody recall at that RTM meeting if
I'm looking at the meetings right now, the minutes right now. Appointment of Suzanne Title, is that how she pronounces her name?
I'm sorry?
Her name is her last name Title? Is that how it's pronounced? Suzanne Title? Yeah, the FairTV Commission to fill a vacancy. It was on the consent calendar.
Oh boy,
Looking at the minutes.
there's something I see here that worries me. Does anybody have a spelling of her last name?
It's right here, T-E-I, hang on a second, that's not. T-E-I-T-E-L-L.
Oh, good. Yes, I see that as well. Okay. For a moment, I thought I'll just ask Jen for an update, but that email was sent out on January 25th. Suzanne, I believe is how her name is pronounced, was on that email. So in theory, is she, you know, had the assuming that was voted successfully, right? For her to be added, she would have needed to have gone in after the 30th.
All it says is it was on the consent calendar, so presumably she was consented.
Okay. Well, as soon as I have an update, I'll let you all know. There's nothing more to really say. All right. Is there any other new business that anyone would like to talk about? Okay. Then I'll make them. Oh, I'm sorry, there is one item, just as I was about to make a motion to conclude this meeting. Luke, do you want to just give us a super quick update? There's no issue here, but what was the gist of the request? And I know I saw your response, which was excellent, to the concern about meetings going into executive session and whether they're being covered or not.
Yeah, so we're not allowed to cover the actual executive
right.
session. So what we normally do is they usually pause the WebEx recording or Zoom recording, and then we put up a splash screen that just says, Board of Selectmen will return soon. We shut off video, audio, so there's nothing, nothing's being recorded or live streamed. And then once they come back, they basically come back from executive session. They usually announce it. We're back from executive session. Let's get on. Usually, if they have a vote on something, they'll say it, and then that's when we restart the cameras. And then most of the time they just adjourn or they'll vote on one item, and then it'll be over. I think the one thing you were talking about was the first Board of Selectmen meeting that Bill was attended. He ran it. He went to executive session, came back, and in like 1 second said, back from executive session, adjourned, and then it was over. So he didn't give us or anyone enough time to actually get the cameras back up. But I think the staffer there told him that, you have to give us a minute to come back. We're not recording. We can't record at the time. So I think it's been good since. Haven't heard anything or haven't seen anything bad. So I think it was just a one time, he was still getting used to the lay of the land as well as everything else. So
That's fair. And hopefully there will be no issues with that. And I know it was, a one-off, so everyone makes a mistake.
Yep.
All right. Well, with that, I'll make a motion to conclude the February 2024 regularly scheduled meeting of the FairTV Commission.
Second it.
All right. Well, thanks everyone, and we'll talk on next meeting. Just to clarify, Monday. Who can get to their calendar the fastest?
March 18th, I believe.
I knew it was going to be Will. Bailed me out more than once on this calendar thing. Okay. And okay, beautiful. And then the Wednesday ones are canceled. So we'll talk then. Wishing everyone well. Thanks all.
Sounds
See
good.
y'all.
Thank
Have a
you.
great night.
Thank you.